In the secular world, last Sunday was Easter. And now all the Easter baskets are packed away and we are moving on. But in the church, Easter is just getting started. We have 40 days between the first Sunday of Easter and the Ascension, and another 10 between Ascension and Pentecost. Easter in the church is a season that lasts 7 weeks. And so last Sunday, we had the empty tomb and the appearance to Mary Magdalene. But Mary was a distraught woman. And there is strangeness in the Gospels. Those who were closest and knew Jesus best did not recognize him at first in the resurrection. Something had physically changed about his appearance. But when they heard his words, they were able to see their teacher, leader, and friend in this altered state. So what exactly Mary told the others she saw is unclear. And in a society in which a woman's testimony had no standing, but in a community in which women were respected, it is also unclear to what level the men trusted the words of Mary. Even today in the business world, most women I know have experienced the frustration of saying something and having it waved off or ignored in conversation, but then reiterated as a new idea and taken up by men later with no credit being given to the woman who originally made the suggestion. And so on the second Sunday of Easter, we find the disciples locked in this upper room, terrified that the Roman soldiers will storm the place, murdering or enslaving most and taking the leaders as prisoners to be publicly tortured and executed, just like Jesus as an insurrectionist cell. They have seen the empty tomb and heard from Mary that Jesus is risen. They still are living in fear and not hope. But without refrigeration, they send one of the less prominent apostles, not Peter, not James, not John, but Thomas, out into the marketplace for supplies. He has a Galilean accent, but at least he might not attract as much attention. So Thomas goes out, and Jesus comes in. And the doubting apostles come to believe enough, at least they tell Thomas. But they don't believe so much that they leave the comfort of the upper room and attract the attention of the Roman garrison. But Thomas, because he was out when Jesus visited, expresses his belief that they are all trying to pull a fast one on him and are laughing at Mary in the process. And for this reason, the second Sunday of Easter is called Doubting Thomas Sunday, which really is not fair to one of the greatest evangelists of the early church. After all, tradition holds that Thomas founded the Indian church of Kerala and died a martyr. And he was apparently considered trustworthy and respected enough that he was charged with going out so the others could remain inside. But the true point that was being made was not that Thomas's faith was weak, but rather that there would be billions in the centuries to come who would come to believe in the resurrection without ever having seen Jesus of Nazareth. And those of us who come to believe through the testimony of others, that faith is meant to be alive. We are meant to care for one another as family and feed one another at a common table, as is depicted in the first reading. We are meant to be living into the new reality of the world to come, rather than dwelling on individualistic values of this world. Yesterday, we experienced some of that reality when over half of our regular attendees broke tortillas together at the Church of the Advent at a fundraiser for Our Little Roses. As with the meal described in our first reading today, we ate and had our fill and joined together in fellowship. But we also remembered those daughters of God in Honduras whose families have been broken by violence, poverty, and disease, and whose worth has been devalued because of their gender. We were able to see pictures and videos and read and hear the words of these girls, both those living in the home today and those who have grown up to be women a few years younger than me in the years that the Diocese of Western New York has made this special commitment. And through these experiences, we were, for a moment, able to see Christ alive in our world, in our sharing of a meal, and the work of those who care for these girls, but most especially in the girls themselves, who, despite facing horrific conditions, treatment, and neglect, nonetheless have chosen hope, love, and forgiveness. And so that is the gospel message that this second Sunday of Easter, Jesus is alive here in our midst, if we only open our eyes. Amen.